Oh, we got to do another one. Seriously.
Well, if that's your attitude.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. My name's Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. And of course, if you thought we hadn't got the enthusiasm to continue doing these podcasts, then you would be so wrong.
Think again.
Yeah, think again, because we edit these judiciously and we make sure that we don't leave any of the bloopers in, so you'll never know, even if we are fed up to the back teeth of the whole thing. If you've never heard the podcast before, you don't know what you're missing, really. I was going to say, well, then, lucky you. But then I'd have to edit that out again, wouldn't I? And that'd be just a nightmare.
Oh, don't leave that in, for goodness sake.
No, that'd be awful, that wouldn't it, really? Should we start recording now, then? You ready to go?
Yeah, cue, go.
Okay. I've done the introduction already. We can just edit that in again. If you've never heard the podcast before, this is getting very confusing, isn't it? I don't know where the edits are anymore.
Are we on yet?
If you've never heard the podcast before, we talk comedy every week. Which is slightly different from midweek. We talk something else, and it certainly isn't comedy, I can tell you. Adrian and I have a shared love of comedy programs, whether they be on the radio, on the TV, or even these days on the internet as well. And we get together every week and we choose a comedy. I choose one week, he chooses one the next week. And then we dissect them and we say why we like them or why we weren't so keen, what were the good points, what were the bits we didn't enjoy so much, and hopefully everybody goes away relatively happy. That's the plan, isn't it?
That's the plan. Whether it works out, well, we'll have to see.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I've got a question I was going to ask you before we started recording, but then I thought that I'd only have to do that and then edit it in after the bits that we'd edited out.
It's a good job people can't see our Skype feed by which we look at each other from 170 miles away. You're actually wagging your finger at me.
I'm going to have to take a tablet, I think, because I'm getting one of my heads coming on. But
you're getting worked up, aren't you? I know you.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Do you know, I said to you, I was so grateful to you because episode 54 of the Comedy Slab podcast.
The Pin.
You introduced us to the Pin, didn't you? A fabulous duo who we really liked, actually. What did we give them? Can you remember? It was an 8, wasn't it? 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
And I've gone back to listen to the other series. I thought, I'm going to listen. I really enjoyed it that much. I thought I'm going to have a listen to these. And for some reason, all of the episodes of, I think, is it 4 series that are currently being recorded, I think.
You're not going to say they've disappeared?
No. Episode 1 of series 4 is not available. And why would that be? And you're a bit of a guru when it comes to the internet.
Hasn't it fallen outside its 30-day window that makes you
everything
mad
else?
As hell?
Everything else is like everything. All of series 1, all of series 2, all of series 3, all of series 4, except episode 1 of series 4.
Well, it must be. Yes, it's apparently contradictory, or at least inconsistent, but it must be the latest series is following the normal 30-day window.
Oh, so that'll all drop off. The rest of it will drop off then. So episode 2 will drop off in a period of time, or
I'm guessing it will, because that is only a guess. But yeah, I mean, normally comedy is not up indefinitely. This is no word of a lie. I don't think I've ever said this before, but I've listened to a show. This was away from comedy. Amazingly, we do have a life occasionally away from listening to comedy. I was listening to a World Service documentary, and no word of a lie, as I was playing it, in small print, it said to the programme, 83 years left to listen. And I thought that's all right for you to say. I may have said this earlier, in which case it gives away my age anyway, by virtue of the fact I can't remember having said it before.
I thought you were going to say, and as I was listening to it, somebody was erasing it behind me.
So I had to listen to it at double speed. I've done that before now. I've been so close to a deadline. This is not so long ago, in the last few months.
Yeah.
For a Radio 4 news bulletin. Regular listeners will know I have the dark underbelly. I've covered it up with a T-shirt this evening for you on Skype, Shane. No one else can see the pictures. But
have you tried bleaching it?
You it, son, I'll play it. But I was so close to the deadline for this bit of audio for the news bulletin at 8 o'clock going to air that I had to listen back to it at double speed. So for all I knew, it was actually Pinky and Perky who had voiced it.
It's quite entertaining though, isn't it?
Oh, it is. If ever you... it's a bit like imagining your boss on the toilet. If ever you want to kind of belittle some... Did I say that out loud? Oh, no. The firewall's broken down.
I think that's only you that imagines your boss on the toilet. Isn't it horrible when you say something like that and you think everybody else does it?
Yeah, and you suddenly realise the room goes silent.
Who was it? A comedian said it's like when you smear pate on your genitals and then invite the dog over. Then he went, and like they're all silent. And he went, "Oh, it's just me then."
It's a good line, though. Anyway, yes. So if ever you want to kind of reduce someone's power inside your head, play their voice back at double speed, and you won't be nearly so frightened of them.
That's my party trick, isn't it? Though, because I can actually talk like and then go shoo 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 shoo.
Can you do the famous? That's very convincing, by the way. Yeah, I'd forgotten you had that particular useless skill. That was Pingu, surely. Pingu at half speed is probably, I don't know, Tony Blair or something.
That'd be terrible, wouldn't it? If like you have you ever done that? Who was that I did slow down? It was Pinky and Perky. And if you slow it down, if you slow a Pinky and Perky record down, it's just it's just two old blokes singing a song.
And are they saying Paul's dead and giving out satanic messages in reverse?
Yeah. If you play it backwards, it says
that's an evil show.
You got to eat your greens or something. Yeah, I never knew you had a dark underbelly. I knew you had dark underpants, but I never knew you had a dark underbelly. It just shows you, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. What was I saying? Did I finish that point? I got so confused, like you. I got waylaid by the image of the boss on the toilet. Yes, I did finish it.
I was just thinking of some of the people I work for. It was all I could do to look them in the eye when they were fully dressed and sitting on a chair.
Yeah, maybe someone of your disposition shouldn't spend too long thinking of them on the carsey. It's
a bit like what's the face in Game Face, isn't it? What's the name? Roisin Connaughton, which is sort of one about a dog and got knocked over in front of me. If I imagine my boss sitting on the toilet, I'd be going. I can't be able to stand it. Oh dear. Anyway, it was my choice last week, wasn't it, to pick a comedy for us to peruse. And I tell you what, this was like kind of happenstance. This one, I just like one thing leads to another. I waste a lot of my life just flopping about on YouTube, looking at different videos, either people driving badly or Russians trying to park or. People, one of my
Roisin's trying to park.
There's some fabulous creative videos, I would call them now, of people making things. And there's one guy who makes guitars, out of various things, and he made guitars out of a load of coloured pencils, by putting them in. He sort of put all the pencils. I'll send you the link to the video. He put all the pencils into this mould, and then put resin in, and then he really talented.
So to glue them together.
Yeah,
I think that since that's part of the show now, this particular edition of Comedy Slab, number 57.
Yeah,
we're like Heinz now, aren't we? All those varieties.
Nearly pensionable, aren't we now? Yeah. Go on anyway.
I think you should put a link to that video as part of the blurb to this show because it's an integral part.
Okay, I will. I'll do that if you want me to. It's like I ain't got enough to do with my time, But
well, we've gathered if you spent less time looking at pencil shavers, and that's not a term of abuse, well, maybe it is now on YouTube. It's not a euphemism, as Colin Holt would say.
I must clear my history when I get a minute. Yeah, what was I saying? I can't remember what I was saying now. What were we talking about?
No idea. We're both dementing in real time.
Yeah, I'll have to.
I think you're about to describe the show that we really ought to get on and Slab.
Oh yeah, and what it was, because I was like sort of flitting about on YouTube, and I came across a guy called Simon Evans doing stand-up. I think it was like they have a lot of these. Is it at the Apollo? They do a lot of these.
Well, he has been on that, yeah.
Yeah, and so they'll just clip off the particular comedian. I don't know whether they're legit channels or whether it's the BBC doing it or not. Anyway, so I Simon it and I thought this guy is hysterical, and so I had to look around just to scout around to see what kind of stuff he did and what else he'd done, and then I came across his show, which I think ran for 4 series so far. I think something like that.
Yeah.
Called Simon Evans Goes to Market, and I thought, well, if it's good enough for this little piggy, then why not Simon Evans? And I thought, Okay, we'll try. Now, I hadn't heard this before at all, and I just thought, well, I liked him and what I'd seen. It doesn't always work, does it? That because sometimes,
No.
In fact, I was saying about Roisin Connerty a couple of weeks ago that I love her. I'm not a fan of her doing stand up, so it doesn't always translate. But so I found this, which, as I say, is currently on the BBC Sounds website. I think that all 4 series are available if you want to go and have a listen. That's what I've chosen for this week. So, are we doing headline now? We used to do this thing where we'd ask each other what a headline would be for the show.
Yes, well, you banned me from asking you before the first clip, but now, because you're so inconsistent and evil, you expect me to give a headline, a summary of my view of the show before we've heard the first clip, but I'm not playing ball.
I do like the Jeopardy, you know that. I mean,
yeah, well, I will give you a headline afterwards, and this conveniently gives me some thinking time because I haven't prepared one already.
Okay, well, that'll give you a bit of time to think if you want, won't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Should you have a clip there? I mean, again, I do like to get a clip quite near to the start of the show because I think for our purposes it kind of gives people a flavour, for what we're first hearing when we listen to these shows to slab them first time round. So that's what I did. I had a bit from very near to the top of the show. A couple of gags in, I think. Actually, it's very gaggy. I found this show. There's quite a few gags in it. But the first clip is Simon Evans. I mean, quite simply, explaining that this is the second series that we picked. It was Series 2, Episode 2, was it, I think? Series 2...
I can't remember the episode number.
Episode 1.
I'm not sure it right, but
Episode
it's called
1.
Alcohol. That's
I knew you'd remember. He didn't remember what number it is, everyone, but he remembers it was called Alcohol.
Oh.
He thought it was a drinking game, so every time we press play, I have to have another drink. So it was Series 2, Episode 1, and he starts off by explaining that this is the second series, and it's slightly different from the first series, and he explains roughly what's going to happen this series.
This time around, we're going to look at the markets in human weakness: alcohol, sugar, coffee, and tobacco. Now, I know you think economics is boring and that you're too stupid to understand it, but actually, only one of those things is true. Yes. Even a cursory understanding of economics can help you see how the world works and could change your life, possibly even for the better. For example, if only Alanis Morissette had grasped the principles of trade, she wouldn't have minded that she had 10,000 spoons when all she needed was a knife. Out there was someone else with half a ton of knives and a bowl of soup that was going cold. Even Alanis, with her poor grasp of irony, could surely see that she was in a strong bargaining position. She cornered the spoon market, which, given the angle-free geometry of the spoon, really is ironic. However, this episode is not about spoons, but alcohol, and how economics might help our understanding of our relationship with it. Alcohol itself, of course, needs no introduction, and nor do you, it seems, if you've had a few.
Now, here's the thing. I managed to convince myself that Simon Evans, I mean, obviously talented, but I didn't think comedy was his main thing. And I don't know whether I've confused him with another Evans or where I've heard it from, or maybe that I've heard him in perhaps slightly more serious or at least discursive sort of group discussions or something. But have you heard him in another context other than stand-up?
No, but I have the same feeling about him that you do, because I looked him up actually to try and find a bit of information, but I couldn't find anything. I'd only got limited time, and I couldn't find anything that would suggest that what his career was previously, or whether he was an economist or something. I'm not really quite sure. But yeah, I get the feeling as well, same as you do, that comedy wasn't his first career.
Right. Well, certainly. I mean, I know this much, having wikified him, and I think it's also on his personal website, so we ought to be able to trust it. He did train as a lawyer, so and he's clearly bright as a button.
I think I've said to you before. Have I told you that in my neck of the woods, that's somebody who doesn't tell the truth?
Well, I couldn't possibly comment. I don't want to make myself vulnerable to being prosecuted.
If you're listening globally, by the way, that was a joke alluding to the accent that people use in Birmingham and the Black Country, because they would say that somebody who was lying, he's a lawyer. He's a right lawyer.
Oh, sorry, I missed the subtle... What with that and the good eyes the other week?
Well, what was the one with the soldiers there? And he said, "Now listen, men, we didn't come here to die." And he went, "No, sir, we came here yesterday."
Well, I'm glad you Brummers can laugh at yourselves.
Oh, well, everybody else does. Why not?
Yeah, join in the joke. Might as well enjoy it. All I was going to say was his personal website, just by the by, 'cause it's useful to know, Simon Evans, comedian, etc. You see, that's another thing, comedian, etc.com. And that's another reason to think, oh, right, so it's not your full-time occupation.
But are you treating that like a beautiful body? Are you holding that against him?
No, I'm not, because it's good to be to have more than one skill. But there are certain kicks and flicks that he does that makes me think he doesn't sound like a dyed-in-the-wool, honest to goodness, I have to be a full-time comedian.
Like
Do you
what?
have any idea?
No, go on.
It's about. I think I just did it there myself. It's the inhalation of breath after he's delivered a gag. It's a slightly nervous tick where you're not sure you're going to get the laugh. So I say something really funny, I'm sucking some air, and I'm giving away all my weaknesses. But it's not a terrible thing, and he is a funny guy. But that
you see,
is just one of the clues.
I thought that was just the speed that he talked at, was because he does talk quickly, doesn't he?
He does. Well, he thinks quickly because he's so flipping bright. I do feel. I mean, I haven't come up with a headline successfully yet, have I? Simon Evans managed to market to me. Market it to me.
Yeah, that was quite good. That was very good. Yeah.
On the hoof, not terrible, but there are these buts, which is it does feel like a verbal assault for half an hour because he talks really loudly and because he's got a slightly constrained vocal delivery.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, can I just have 30 seconds where everything calms down a bit and we all catch our breath and all of that. And
voice,
it doesn't happen, does it? It doesn't happen.
It's make or break, isn't it? I mean, you're either going to, you're either going to be able to. Yeah, you're either going to be able to cope with it or you're not going to be able to cope with it. I tell you who does that for me, and it really annoys me that it does that for me, is Josh Widdicombe. Have you heard?
Right.
Yeah, and
I do know him, from the Last Leg and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I really think he's a really funny guy, but I just can't get. And I have I've said to you before, what's the name that talks like that? She's a comedian. And
Sarah Milligan.
That's it. She's like, it's in this falsetto, and she started doing voiceovers for ads now, and I'm thinking, I cannot take this anymore.
I cannot take it, but it reminds me, do you remember Vic Reeves? If you have an itchy bottom. Or was that actually Bob Mortimer doing that?
That's what she does on the Tesco advert. She's going, no, if you've got an itchy bottom, get some cream.
Cream? It's in aisle 8.
And voice is a thing, isn't it? Is that it's a deal breaker for a lot of people. So I mean, could you get past that? Or
I could, because for the wonderful, beautiful comedic reason, it's such strong material.
Yeah,
absolutely hilarious. Now he is. Well, I was going to say the writer, but he is a writer. I mean, I think the way they give out the credits, it sounds like he's the main writer, but he does have co-writers.
Yeah,
and I haven't got them in front of me. I don't know if you have, but
yeah, the writers, Benjamin Partridge, Andy Wolton, and Guy Venables.
Give me a second series. Oh no, wrong Partridge.
Yeah, wrong Partridge. It's Benjamin Partridge. Aha!
Oh.
I mean, that whole riff about Alanis Morissette. And I mean, all right,
but you obviously got to get the source material.
Yeah,
right,
yeah, you got it. I mean,
I had to work it out backwards because I'd forgotten that lyric.
Well, the only other Alanis Morissette, and she's very often the subject matter for comedians. Funnily enough, is that. I'd heard somebody do a kind of riff about Alanis Morissette, and they did that kind of, what irony is, and no, that's not ironic, it's this.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. No, it isn't ironic. No, it isn't ironic.
I can't remember who that was, but at the end...
it was really clever, though, yeah.
And at the end, he kind of said, but at the end of the day, we've all been dumped, love, get over it, kind of thing, because that's like the whole album is bitterness, his outpouring of having been dumped, which I quite like. So to hear some fresh stuff or some different stuff, I thought was... was just awesome. I really did. I mean, that grabbed me straight away. No, but it wasn't like that. I mean, we'll hear it a little bit later, but it wasn't like that the whole show, was it? Though it wasn't that kind of. Maybe you can't keep that kind of relentless, gag telling up at that pace. But I was going to say, it got that sense of ebb and flow. Did you get that as well?
Well, you think I'd pick up on stuff like that. I didn't hear it in quite that way. I mean, I started to write some of the gags down because they're so gorgeous. But no, I don't think no, I didn't particularly notice that.
Let me illustrate it a bit more, perhaps succinctly for you. Let's play the second clip, because he then interviews a guy who I've always admired for his name, because you don't get many Professor Nuts to the pound, do you? I think it's fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
What a great name. Whenever he was a contributor on anything, I always used to think, yeah, go on, David, you go for it, mate. Professor David Nuts on the show this morning. I think, oh, lovely. But this is a second clip, and he's telling us about his meeting. This is Simon Evans, is telling us about his meeting with Professor David Nutt, who was a former government advisor. He met with him to get his take on alcohol.
I met David Nutt at a pub, which gradually emptied bizarrely as we went on. He ordered the Diet Coke and I gingerly looked at an untouched pint while he told me just how dangerous alcohol really is.
If we treated alcohol like we treat food additives, for instance, or food colorants, and we do proper toxicology testing and we say, how much of this is safe to use in a year? The amount of alcohol you could drink in a year would be about 1 glass of wine. And that shows you the magnitude of the blinkers we put on ourselves, because we allow ourselves to drink 1,000 times more than the safe dose.
That is extraordinary, because I had seen widely reported that a glass or two of red wine a night is better than nothing at all in terms of health.
Yeah, well, this is one of the wonderful pieces of misinformation that the drinks industry puts out. Alcohol overall is extremely damaging. There is no age in which alcohol consumption, either in men or women, it has a net benefit in our society. And alcohol in young people is particularly damaging. Alcohol is the leading cause of death in men between the ages of 16 and 50.
So I laugh a minute there. I did wonder, I wondered retrospectively, just as I was hearing that now, I should have wondered earlier. I was listening to a straighter show earlier today, Alex Edelman, who we've... Actually, the announcer was pronouncing it Edelman. I thought it was Edelman. But anyway, a American-Jewish stand-up that you really enjoyed, that I really enjoyed.
Touched with the Woody Allen's, didn't he? He reminded us.
Possibly coming from the Jewishness. And
the New Yorkishness, was it? Yeah, anyway, God, sorry.
Yeah, I've completely forgotten the point I was going to make now. It's not a good night for memory, is it?
That's me. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have interjected, should I? You were listening to a straighter show.
Straighter show. Someone said something that pertained... Oh, yes. It reminded me just now that one of the things you didn't like about the Alex Edelman stand-up was the, quotes, interjections, pre-recorded stuff. And so it's only as I was playing that there, I didn't think of it earlier today or as I was listening yesterday. But I would have thought for you that might be another sort of trip hazard.
Yeah.
And was it?
Yeah, it was a bit. Only again, because it kind of, almost because it threw me. It was. I think we've invented a new genre, or Simon Evans has certainly, called the docu-comedy.
Well, along with Alex Edelman, by the sound of things.
Yeah, and I can't. I mean, the difference was, I think, with the interjections with Simon Evans were that to me, they were as gripping as the comedy was funny in this particular episode. Like that, what Professor David Nutt was saying there, like, this idea that they put about this myth that a glass of wine a night, when in actual fact a safe amount to have is a glass of wine a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's horrifically frightening, isn't it, really? But hugely interesting as well. And so I kind of, for a moment, I was like, oh, hands up in horror, oh, look at me. Look, I've got my crinoline skirt up and oh, like that.
I don't want to think of you in your crinoline skirt, much less with it up.
I wish I hadn't have sent those photos to you now.
It's like me and my boss on the toilet.
If I'd have known you were going to be so cruel about it. So, yes, what about you? How did it work? Were you sitting there thinking, hang on, where are we going?
No, actually, no. I think he got one past me there. It's only in sort of being perhaps more consciously in slabby mode now as we record. Can you say slabby on this show? I suppose you have to occasionally. Got away with it. But I didn't realise he was somehow, he was sugar-coating the pill. The comedy is the sugar and the pill is the uncomfortable truths about alcohol. But, I mean, I thought if ever there was a time for you to get a bit on your high horse against poor Auntie, and we should explain for people of a certain age, either within or without the UK, that Auntie used to be a sort of semi-affectionate but also semi-sarcastic term for the BBC, which I still cling to, that you might think, oh, that's Auntie being too worthy and telling us what's good for us and what's not good for us.
Well, I mean, quite the reverse, really, is because, I mean, don't forget Professor David Nutt was sacked, wasn't he, from his role as a...
He told the truth, didn't he?
Of a government advisor, because he kind of didn't get a grip of it at all, did he? He got the wrong end of the stick there. They said, no, you, as a government advisor, you're supposed to tell people what we tell you to tell them, not what you don't tell them the truth.
Yeah.
So I kind of like to have him on. He's quite maverick, isn't it, in a way? I think
And it was good value. But listening back there, I remembered how he'd sounded to me originally. I was trying to put he sounds like a politician to begin with.
Yeah.
And it was Peter Hain he reminded me of just there.
Yeah,
but then there's some burr, and you realise he's from the West Country. He kind of gives it away. Maybe he was drinking a pint after all, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Or a scrumpy or something. So for me, yes, it just gets in under the wire because it's sufficiently... It's a sort of gasp moment, as you sort of said, in not so many words.
Yeah, I kind of felt I could almost see the... the jaw drop. I was kind of like, hello, where am I now? What's this? Because as you said off the back of that clip, I mean, when we came out of that, you did think, well, that was a laugh a minute, wasn't it?
But here's the thing. I mean, sorry, pursuing what I thought was scientific fact, which he's querying, there is, I don't know if you're aware, because he's popped up on the telly because it's such an intriguing story. There's a heart surgeon who's paid for certainly the inpatients, maybe they're the ones about to have heart surgery, otherwise you wouldn't be in hospital, or recovering from. He pays for them out of his personal pocket, because it wouldn't really do for it to come off the NHS. He pays for them to have a glass or two, and it is literally a glass or two, and they can have two if they want, of red wine every day.
Right. Because
he believes it's better for them. But then this is forever being contradicted because someone else says, well, actually, it's the skins of the grape, which it's an enzyme or something within the skins of the grape, and you can get the same effect from grape juice, which, of course, won't send you off your rocker or, So it's, who do you believe in the end? You'd have thought a heart surgeon would, I mean, doctors are scientists, aren't they? So why would he be wrong?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I used to work with a guy. He was my producer for a while, and he was very much like Carl Pilkington. He was from the same neck of the woods, and he had a real reason. I won't go into the reason why, but he'd been on the wrong end of a medical mistake, as it were, shall we say. And he had a pathological hatred for consultants and thought that they were
spawn of Satan.
Yeah, with sort of messiah complexes and and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. So I mean, and to be honest with you, some of the consultants I've met, I think, no, not really. But so yeah, who knows? I don't really know. I think the point is that this program made the detours that it made some really quite interesting and almost shocking points. There was that section where they were talking about whether you increase the sort of make a price increase for
minimum price.
Yeah, minimum pricing. Yeah. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. Or whether you tax it, and then therefore it goes back to the exchequer. And I kind of thought, well, there were bits of it that really made me think. Now. The difference between that and Alex Edelman or whatever it is was I didn't get that feeling with his. However, I'm not quite sure when we move on to the episode about sugar. I mean, maybe it will be that you'll have that same kind of revelation. I don't know.
No. Well, is that your way of saying you will move on to that personally, because you very often, if you like a show on the Comedy Slab, very often you go away and listen to all the rest of the series.
Oh, I'll listen to the rest of the series. There's no doubt about it. I love the guy. I can't get enough of him. I think he's stand-up, when he talks about he was talking about his family and his kids and all that sort of stuff, and his delivery suited that kind of, you know, I'm nearly 60 and I'm really fed up kind of act.
That's the shtick, is it?
I think so, yeah. And again, you were saying about how sharp the writing is. I mean, he's good at delivery, but the writing, and if you can get past the voice, again, you know, I know a lot of people go, oh, I can't listen to him. But the writing that he uses, whether it's his own or whether it's other writers, is as sharp as a tack, I think.
Oh, there's beautiful lines. Like, for instance, somehow he gets onto alcohol and the duration. What was it? I can't remember his way in, but he neatly links that to they've got a bottle of limoncello they've had for 23 years. Even the cleaner won't touch it. You know, it's just gorgeous lines. Or
they were talking about trying to police drunkenness, and he said, "I just want to make the distinction. That is policing drunkenness, not drunkenness of the police."
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know. There was just some, you're right, just some great lines,
layer upon layer. And also, and this is where he gives away the fact he's a very experienced and very competent comedian. And I'm, you know, I'd be very surprised if this wasn't a genuine ad lib. It seemed so natural in the context. They have a member of the production called Andy, who barely drinks a drop, by his own confession, has a glass of sherry a year and doesn't really enjoy it.
Yeah,
they're using him as a sort of production guinea pig, and it's a perfect moment because you hear this laugh, and you kind of know as a listener, well, that laugh doesn't belong to any gag that he's delivered. Simon Evans, and Simon says, you know, he's drinking. Andy's having a craft ale, and smooth as butter. Simon says, "Oh, there's obviously more craft in the making of it than pouring it." And immediately your brain conjures up. This is the beauty of radio, best pictures, and all of that, you know, cliche. Yeah. You conjure up a picture, or because he's inexperienced. If it's him pouring it, maybe it was Simon pouring it, but I think it's Andy pouring it. He's not used to tipping the glass, as my off-license owning grandfather showed me when I was a kid. Tilt the glass, and then you don't get all the bubbles. There are still grown-ups who don't know that.
It was a rite of passage, wasn't it? That kind of thing, yeah. Because and then he goes, didn't he say something? And they'd laugh again. The audience do while he's talking. He said, "Can you stop your froth-based hilarity or something like that?"
Yes, or stop upstaging me. But yeah. Right. Just beautiful ad libs. Yeah,
it might be in the clip. I don't know. Actually, this the final clip is of the one that I chose is of Andy, the show guinea pig, as they call him. Who has been drinking throughout the show. What a job at the BBC. How come you can't get a gig like that, for goodness sake?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't thank them for it.
And this particular clip, we hear from Andy at the start of the show, or very near the top of the show, and then a little bit later on, they go back to see how he's getting on.
Let's go and check how are you doing, Andy. Can I just ask, you've had your wine, how are you getting on with the wine? You haven't made much of a dent in it, I have to say.
It doesn't taste very nice for a start.
Have one large gulp out of that and then move on to that craft beer that we've got sitting there. I'm a bit suspicious of the craft beers. I think craft has its place, usually in a market or something, you know, but I'm not sure beer should be made with love. I think know-how is more important, personally, but you have a glug of that, see how you get on. Now, there is one drink... Whoa! More craft went into the making of it than the pouring of it, by the There is one drink I won't be giving to Andy this evening after a long discussion with the producer, which is a shame, to be honest, because it's an entirely legal beverage that I've been... Could you stop upstaging me with your froth antics over there? It is a shame because it's an entirely legal beverage that I've long been intrigued by, and yet I am unwilling to sample myself. And I think it illustrates some of the economic imperatives that actually determine our consumption of alcohol. The drink in question is known by many names, particularly in the parts of Scotland where it's popular. Wreck the Hoose Juice, Commotion Lotion, and Cumbernauld Rocket Fuel. But its official title is Buckfast Tonic Wine.
Is that an ooh of recognition? Because I didn't recognise it.
I think that's our sheltered upbringing. That's what that is. Yeah. But, you know, if we'd have been Presbyterians, we'd have probably known all about Scottish Presbyterians,
or non-conformist.
Wreck the hoose juice. No, I've never come across Buckfast or Bucky as they go. It rings a distant bell. Somebody talking about Bucky, but was it Simon Evans in his stand-up as well, or was it on this? Was it on this where he said it's ironic that the favourite drink of people who are homeless is Tennent's.
No, that's not in this show, but it's a good line.
It must be on his stand-up, I think. But
it's going to laugh first, feel guilty afterwards. I think a line like that.
I'd never come across it before, though. It's no. But you hadn't tried it either?
No. And it's made by monks, as we learned. Sorry, I should have issued a spoiler warning, or rather, should have. Remembered what we had for clip 3 before launching into telling you exactly what was in clip 3 and quoting it. Anyway, dear listener, you heard, I think, a great illustration of what we were saying about how natural his ad-libs were. I should say, for legal purposes, it's the BBC Radio comedy production. So slightly 2014, you were saying it was produced.
I think certainly the first or second series, I think, was 2014. Yeah,
right. Slightly predates the spinning off of BBC Studios for people who like their auntie politics. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was only going to say again. He was saying, that Bucky or Buckfast or whatever it was called. He said one of the things that used to in the adverts. He said they've rode back on it now, but it used to promote lively blood. He said, so lively, in fact, you'd find it leaping out of your body and pooling in the gutter with teeth bobbing in it.
Oh, again, fantastic visual imagery.
It's just, there's not a word out of place there, though, is there? Do you know what I mean?
Nothing wasted, no. I noticed you touched on the names of the co-writers. Dan Evans gets a mention. I wonder if by any chance they are related, but I was just looking quickly at Dan Evans' website. He's a stand-up in his own right, so not surprising that he can... spin a yarn and write a line. Robert Ledger, not ring any bells with me, that name, though we may have, of course, enjoyed loads of shows that he's written, just not spotted his name. No. Ring any bells for you?
No.
We'll have to check him out. But anyway, however much is team writing and however much is just a bit of gentle editing after Simon's written the bulk of it, whatever it is, it works. And
do you know? I often wonder. I mean, I don't know. We'd have to get him on the slab and find out. But I mean, like literally, I don't mean
hold a knife to his throat.
I mean murder him and then put him on some kind of cold slab or something. But I do wonder as well whether there's an argument to be had that if a comedian has a writing team or has a writing partner or has somebody that they want to bring on board, better to do that. And then maybe a script editor, if you need to do that, than to force somebody to work with, somebody that you've got knocking about the building. I think if that's the case, I think that would be a shrewd move personally. But I mean, again, you were saying about Bucky being made by monks. And he just like throws away great lines. I mean, they are literally throwaway lines, but they're just brilliant. And he was saying, he said, now you're imagining, when he sort of mentioned monks, you're imagining either Bill Bailey or Derek Nimmo, depending on your age.
On your age. But then I was going to ask you, I've written a question mark next to Bill Bailey. That's not Black Books, is it? Has he played a monk at something? Am I being daft here? I know that Derek Nimmo, I'm old enough to remember All Gas and Gators and...
Yeah. Well, because that's the other thing as well is never mind your age. And I've always say this because you always say, oh well, if they're not on old enough to remember it. And I think get out there and experience what's gone before. Because I wasn't old enough to remember the Goon Show the first time round, but I went and sought it out and listened to it and enjoyed it. And I think there's I don't like that kind of well, it didn't happen in my era, so it's not something I should be interested in. It kind of frustrates me. Monk, Bill Bailey, he did. I can't remember where. I can see him, and I can't remember.
Not Black Books.
I don't think. No, it wasn't Black Books, was it? He wasn't a monk in. Was he? No.
Don't think so.
I can't remember. I'm going to have to look it up if you.
You are. Come back to us on that one, caller.
If you insist on.
I do incinerate. I absolutely do. Well, I think we can't put off the, it's not necessarily the evil hour, but certainly the hour of reckoning, where we give a mark out of 5 each and totted up into double figures or not.
Apparently, he was in a Radio 4 comedy, or Radio 4 Extra as it was, so it could have been BBC. So 2000, when was that? Was that before BBC 7? Was that still Radio 4 then? Or I can't remember.
Well, it wouldn't have been made specially for Radio 7, but no, I think that probably only came in 2000, a few years. I can't remember.
Anyway, he was in a radio sitcom called Hey Hey We're the Monks, which in actual fact was set in a place called Buckley Abbey. I don't know if there was.
Gosh, that's a bit subtle though. I don't remember that, and I'm not sure many people would. But anyway,
yeah.
But it's still got a laugh though, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it was just a kind of. I don't know. They were quick. The problem with quick comedy like that sometimes, and we've said this before, is that, and I can't remember what springs to mind immediately. Is if you go too quickly, you can miss a lot of it.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I was switched on and tuned in. I didn't get. Did you get that, or were you?
I missed a gag at the top, and then I replayed it, and I still couldn't miss it. Make sense of it, and so I think that was a rare moment's lapse of articulation. But I can't have it both ways, can I? That complain that he's shouting, and then that I can't hear him.
Can't hear him.
It doesn't usually work. Anyway, so who goes first? Halt. Who goes there?
Well, you can if you want. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm just.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say before we do the numbers. At the end of his show, he did right. So what have we learned? And I thought, we should use that. What have we learned in the show today? What have we learned in the podcast today? But we can't just keep going nothing every week, can we?
We have to make something up.
Be like being back at school. Nothing, sir. So maybe not. Okay, let's do the numbers.
Yes, the numbers.
Do you want me to go?
I'm a teacher. Well, yeah, while I teeter, I've got, yeah.
I always think things like that. I always think of, was it Hale and Pace, who were much maligned? But I still think they had funny moments, and not least the fact Ron and Ron, do you remember the bouncers, Ron and Ron?
Do management.
We are do management. And he's going,
we manage things.
We don't like tittering, do we, Ron? I can't remember what the gag was, but he was always like a kind of play on words that, he'd misheard him sort of thing.
Yes.
But
there was one where the crowd cheer, and one of them says, sycophants, and the other one says, yeah, and sick of spiders too. That stays with you. And Yorkshire Airlines is a classic. You should really Google that if you haven't seen it.
So I like them. I interviewed Norman Pace once.
Yeah.
And
was he hale and hearty?
He was one of the loveliest guys. Do you know, sometimes when you sit, you do an interview with somebody and you sit down and it all just seems so easy. It's just like having a chat.
I wish this show was. But,
yeah, I know. Maybe we should stop using the script.
Maybe we should start liking each other. That would work.
Is that what it says there at the bottom of page 32?
I think so. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, my rehearsal not went very well. Yeah, he was just. Oh, he was lovely. He was a really nice guy. Really nice. Really funny and natural as well. But big golfer, wasn't he? I think.
Was he?
Do you know what I like about?
Is he the smaller one?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
He did a lot of straight acting as well after the comedy stuff. But what I liked about them was, unlike a lot of people in showbiz, they know that they kind of drew a line and they said, right, that's it, we're retiring now.
Right.
Which a lot of them don't do they? They just
keep
carry
going.
on. Yeah, carry on. Anyway, so we're not going to do what we learned this week because we would never learn anything. What was it me?
You were going to give it a mark, yes.
Shall I give the numbers? Okay, I'm teetering as well. I like a good teeter. I was teetering between 3.5 and 4.
Yeah.
And I was going to knock points off just to be a misery gut. So I was going to knock points off for the voice, although I didn't mind it. I know that could have been, a problem, and as you say, quite a shouty delivery. And the kind of, and I don't know if this is just me being rubbish really, but the kind of, I was all a bit mixed up about what kind of show I was listening to halfway through, and I got very confused and had a panic attack. but I was all right in the end kind of thing. So I was going to not point. I think I'm going to go because the writing is so sharp, the delivery is so crisp, and it was such a great listen. I mean, it just flew by. I'm going to give it a 4.
Oh, lummy. Well, my teetering is not that high. I'm a little bit below that. I'm teetering between 3 and 3.5. I don't want to keep banging on about the voice and the delivery. You've done that for me. I did it earlier.
It's an issue, though, isn't it? It is an issue.
It is a bit of an issue, but then you got the feeling, well, he's not putting it on, or it's so consistent. That's how it is. It really is a case of get over it or turn off your radio. And I wouldn't want to turn off the radio, so I got over it. And yes to all of the above about the quality of the writing, as we've said. Unlike you, but then this is very me and not very you. Despite liking it, I won't go away and particularly listen to other shows, other editions, just because I'll move on to the next thing. But yeah, I shouldn't read too much into that. That's just me and my poor time management skills, apart from anything else. So I can put off the evil moment no longer. What is it going to be? I think I have to say 3 because of the concerns. But if it's possible to have a large, warm, generous, figure-hugging 3, it's one of those rather than the colder, more reserved 3s.
I have to say, though, 7 out of 10 is a highly respectable score, isn't it? So, you know.
It's fine, yeah.
So, no, I think that's good. We were listening to Simon Evans Goes to Market. It is available on BBC Sounds. From what I could discern, and I could well be wrong, I couldn't find it because I know people might want to listen to it on a CD or something like that, but I couldn't find anywhere where you could actually buy it yet. But I mean, it might be just a watch this space kind of thing. So you can catch with it on the BBC Sounds website or app, depending on what you fancy. Now it's time for you to pick something for us for next week.
Next week.
Next week.
Next week. Is that like an Irishism?
It's Swedish.
Right.
Next week.
Okie dokie. I am going to... Well, no, I'm going to give you a clue. A one-word clue.
Go on.
See if you can get this.
Go on.
But you have to be of a certain age and you have to have seen a certain TV series back in the day.
Right.
Stonybridge. That's all you're getting.
No.
Not ringing any bells?
No.
Come to Stonybridge. It isn't Stony and there's no bridge there.
Scottish, obviously.
Yeah, you got that much. But my accent can't have been so terrible.
I'm racking my brains for Scottish comedies.
Well, not many have gone to the network.
The Naked Video, was it with Gregor Fisher?
Gregor Fisher of Thingy, that film.
The Baldy Man and Rabsy Nesbitt. They did it.
No. I was thinking someone else. But no. I'll put you out of your misery.
Please.
It's Absolutely.
Oh,
which it was a Channel 4 show back in the day.
Is it Jack Doherty?
Yes, who went on to do a chat show on Channel 5 in the early days of Channel 5 and when I was working there as an announcer. What was it? Did it have a fancy name, or was it just called? It wasn't just. It had Jack Doherty in the title, but it was something that sort of implied a chat show, which is what it was.
Wasn't it just the Jack Doherty show? I thought was it? Rings a bell.
Gosh, it's slightly worrying that I can't remember, given how many times I had to introduce it. Yeah, maybe it was. And
now on Channel 4, 5, 6.
5. Get it right.
The programme with that Scottish bloke, I think his name's Jack. We're not really quite sure what the title of the programme is, but we think it's got something that alludes to the fact that it's a chat show.
One reason you didn't become a TV announcer, see? Too wordy, darling.
Is the accent the other reason?
No, it's not the reason, because Bill, not Bill Bailey, another Bill, his name's temporarily escaped me. He's a Brummie. He was a Channel 5 announcer. He used to do the evenings, the peak times.
Oh. It's peak time?
Yes. Anyway, he'll be shouting at the radio or the podcast player for me forgetting his surname. It's all forgetfulness tonight. Anyway, so where was I?
Absolutely.
Right, so absolutely, yes. So from Channel 4 to Radio 4. And in fact, they've had, I think, a few series on Radio 4, most of which passed me by, which is a shame, but... one of those happenstance things, just like you were referring to earlier, had the radio on one day. And I wondered, is this an old Absolutely? And, it sounded very much like the TV show, or is it a new one where they're still going down really well? Is it going fantastically in the hall? And it turns out it's new material. Now, there is a catch. Due to my wonderful timing, by the time you hear this, by the time you hear the show where we slab it, it will have disappeared off BBC Sounds. If you're hearing this particular edition, you're keeping up with this, Shane.
Yeah.
Because if you can't follow it, no one can. But if you're very quick to go to the show, don't hang about until we review it. Go to it now.
Now.
If you're,
wait till we finish, obviously, because that's just rude to just leave us paused.
It is rude. But of course, chances are most people are listening. It could be weeks, months after. In which case, I can only apologise. But the good news is, Channel 4 on your favourite app, All 4, which you call Awful.
Awful, yeah.
Is still carrying Absolutely. I think they must have just brought it out for all time. So there's more than one TV series, the original TV series of Absolutely. Essentially, sketch show. Yes, as you gather, Scottish. I don't really want to say an awful lot more than that, except enjoy, I hope.
All right, absolutely.
Oh, I should just say, obviously, to be precise with the edition, you want the right episode. It's Series 3, Episode 4. That's Series 3, Episode 4. And to give it its full title, The Absolutely Radio Show, BBC Radio 4 on BBC Sounds, and may also have been repeated on BBC Radio 4 Extra.
All right, if you enjoyed us, there is no time constraint, well, no immediate one anyway, in how long you've got to listen to us. You can get all the back episodes of the Comedy Slab on YouTube with a little graphic that kind of whizzes around. It doesn't really do an awful lot of that, but I mean, I know people want to use YouTube as a way of listening as well, so it's there, and it's also on Spreaker, and as a result of being on Spreaker, you can catch us on iHeart Radio or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or most of all the other places where you get your podcast if you've not caught us before. Do subscribe, because it means that you get to find out when there's another episode if you've enjoyed this one.
Indeed so. And I think you'll also enjoy our social medias. And we are, guess what, at Comedy Slab on the Twitter, and likewise at Comedy Slab on Facebook. So if you could follow the former and give a big thumbs up to the latter, that'd be hugely appreciated. Also, you can't beat a really good personal recommendation from someone you trust. And of course, being a loyal listener to the show, you are that person that your friends and family trust. So please spread the word and get the message out there across the globe.
Unless you're me, of course, because my friends and family don't trust me. Well, generally about as far as they can throw me, which, until the diet kicks in, isn't going to be very far, really. Yeah. Anyway, that's it from us. Thank you very much. If you've enjoyed the show, then thank you. If you haven't, then we're gracious. Thank you also for that. And until next time, I'm off to explore the dark underpants of Adrian Lacey.
And this little piggy goes to market.